Morning all. Morning. Good morning. As we speak, Tropical Cyclone Narelle has started crossing the coast in far north Queensland as a Category 4 system. As predicted, it's tracking close to the town of Cowan, and this is a really important message, and it might be the last time we get a chance to do so for some hours. It's a message for people right across the Cape, from the east to the west. But in the coming hours, it's a message for people right across far north Queensland who are likely to experience heavy rainfall and the prospect of flooding. My message to Queenslanders right now is this: we have prepared, you have prepared. The best place right now is for you to remain exactly where you are. The challenges that we are preparing for to hit the coastline are as follows: wind, storm surge, rain, and then the prospect of flooding. Wind is intensifying. In many cases, it'll be the strongest wind that people have experienced in this part of the state for a long, long time. There is the prospect that the eye of the system might pass over the top of the town of Cowan. If this occurs, people will feel great intensity and then a lag. It's really important that people don't leave their homes if that occurs, because the back end of that system will be very, very intense as it goes through. We're experiencing storm surge as far south as Cairns. We've got reports of erosion as well as some water over roads in places in the northern beaches of Cairns. We're approaching high tide, which is due a little later on in the morning, so we're likely to see that rise again, and we're asking people to take caution in that regard. There's a lot of rain in this system, and as it moves, it will be hard and fast. And we're dealing with an area where there are already very saturated catchments. And as a result, the prospect of flash flooding is real, and people in far north Queensland understand where those high-risk areas are. They've been through this before, and we just ask people to take heed of those areas and the prospect that there will be flash flooding experiencing. I want to turn to power. We've already had power lost across that area. There's over 300 outages. Around 73 of those are in the town of Cowan, so there's still a portion of that town with electricity at the moment. But look, I don't want to sugarcoat this. We are going to experience loss of electricity, and the damage is likely to be significant with a system of this size. We mentioned yesterday that there would be the prospect of long-term power outages. Just know that we'll be there to reconnect them, but there is the prospect of those outages to that essential service. To health. All of our health facilities, all of them in that region, have been adequately staffed. We pre-positioned people accordingly. We're very grateful that they were there on the ground. Some of our health facilities have transitioned to emergency services only, but there is help on the ground for people who are needed. To schools, there are 14 schools in the broader area that are closed. Essentially, everything north of the Daintree School on both sides of the Cape will be closed, and that was communicated yesterday afternoon on our disaster.qld.gov.au website, but just a reminder. Final preparations. I want to assure Queenslanders final preparations have been made. You saw the vision of our emergency services staff going door to door. That was still happening this morning. We still had police on the ground in places like Cowan this morning, going door to door, making sure that people were okay. We've had police and other emergency services sweep the area in helicopters. We have swift water rescue crews on the ground. We have electricity crews on the ground. Queensland Health staff, ambulance on the ground. And I want to assure the community there will be no daylight between response and recovery. But right now, the message to people is to stay where you are in the remaining hours, as the system has only just started to cross the coast. To the western side of the Cape, these communities will start to feel the effects of this system this afternoon. It won't be an insignificant system. Even though it will reduce in intensity as it goes across the land, it will still be a significant system for many of those communities in the Western Cape, and we're asking them to do as they do well, and that is to be prepared. So, my message to Queenslanders: stay where you are. This is a remote part of the state, and it's not a highly populated part of the state, but it's a part of the state that matters to us, and they're great communities. And I just want to assure those communities that they matter, and that while small in number, they're big on our identity as who we are as Queenslanders. And we're really determined to make sure we get through with everyone in one piece. Immediately following this briefing, we will be hosting the statewide disaster meeting again here. I want to thank the federal and local agencies who will be joining us in that regard. We will be updating you later on this afternoon about the impacts that we're seeing on the ground, about the impending impacts by that stage on the western part of the Cape. But my message to Queenslanders is very clear. Stay where you are, but just know that we will flick the switch from response to recovery, and I assure you we will get this state back on its feet. Thanks very much. I'll hand over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Premier. Severe Tropical Cyclone Narelle is crossing the far north Queensland coast as we speak at around 7 a.m. this morning as a Category 4 system, with wind gusts forecast in excess of 250 kilometres per hour near the core and in the eye wall of the system. And as I mentioned, the current radar and satellite imagery shows that eye wall crossing the coast directly to the east or just northeast of Cowan as we speak. The system is moving west at around 20 kilometres per hour, so it will track just to the north of Cowan this morning. It will continue to move west across the Cape and is expected to track just to the north of Arakoon later this afternoon and into this evening as a Category 2 system. So crossing the coast is a Category 4, and as it moves west, weakening to a Category 2 system by the time it crosses back into the Gulf of Carpentaria, and then it will continue to move west and re-intensify as it does so. A tropical cyclone warning zone extends across the Cape on the east coast from Lockhart River down to Cape Flattery, and then right across the Cape from Mapoon on the west coast in the north, right down to just north of Kawanyama. The impacts from this system, we've already seen Category 1 wind gusts over 100 kilometres per hour at places like Lizard Island and Lockhart River. Those places are far removed from the core of the system, which, as I said, is moving across the coast to the east of Cowan. So very destructive wind gusts of up to 250 or in excess of 250 kilometres per hour near the centre, as I've mentioned. Destructive wind gusts up to 160 kilometres per hour are likely between Lockhart River and Cape Flattery this morning, including as the system moves north of Cowan. Damaging wind gusts to 120 kilometres per hour are expected or are possible across the warning zone, including on the west coast as the system moves further across the Cape. Heavy to intense rainfall is also expected with this system, and as the Premier said, that is likely to lead to flash and some river flooding. We've already seen 150 millimetres in the last 24 hours at Wenlock River, which is just to the south of Lockhart, and we've seen nearly 100 millimetres at Wujal and Cowan. In terms of the forecast for the rainfall over the next 24 to 48 hours, we are expecting totals in excess of 200 millimetres from Ingham right the way up the coast to Lockhart River and across the Cape. Those totals will increase to excess of 500 millimetres for areas north of about Cooktown, and as I mentioned, very real possibility of flash flooding. A flood watch continues for all catchments across the far north Queensland coast, and initial flood warnings have been issued for the Daintree, Mossman, Mulgrave, Russell and Tully rivers. The tropical cyclone is producing elevated sea levels due to the storm surge, particularly across Princess Charlotte Bay, where the system is tracking across the coast right now. But we have seen elevated sea levels up to around half a metre above the normally expected tides along the east coast of the Cape from Cairns north. I'll just quickly mention that major flood warnings continue across the Thompson, Cooper, Georgina and Eyre Creek, as well as the Boulogne and Flinders rivers further inland. But the rainfall from this system will be confined mostly to Cape York and not put significant amounts of rain into those already existing flooding areas. So in summary, the severe tropical cyclone Narelle is crossing the coast right now as a Category 4 system and will track just to the north of Cowan this morning, with the possibility of 160 km/h wind gusts as it does so. The system will continue to move further west across the Cape and it will move into the Gulf of Carpentaria this evening. Heavy to intense rainfall is also a concern, as well as those elevated sea levels that I already mentioned. Thanks.
Good morning, Chris Stream, the State Disaster Coordinator. So our message continues for residents: do not be lulled into any false sense of security around that change in category status. Those Category 4 winds and rain, as Matt from the Bureau has indicated, are still potentially fatal. We will still see damage to infrastructure and in particular debris flying around, and at those speeds, as I said, it is potentially fatal. As the Premier also said, do not be lulled again into any false sense of security or safety as the eye passes over, particularly for those residents and communities within that direct impact zone. We will see the winds and rain drop off and then pick up again. Another concern of ours is throughout that road network there will be hazards created right throughout the Cape, and that includes across into the western areas of the Cape as the day continues. We will see flash flooding. We are getting reports of in isolated areas of heavy rain, although currently some areas are receiving light rain. We cannot underestimate the potential risk to life that we will continue to see. And we would expect that the community continue to monitor those warnings and follow the direction of emergency service responders. As I said, we have Queensland Police Service, the Queensland Fire Department, we have a State Emergency Service and other responders ready to go, and that includes the utilities. Energy Queensland has 200 utility workers ready to go as soon as it is safe to do so. And we will work on, as I said, our priority is medical and safety first and then moving on to utilities. So stay in tune with those warnings as the day progresses. Thank you.
We've got time for a couple, guys, and then we've got the state meeting, so over to you. If there's any questions from you.
You mentioned there might be some long-term power outages. Do you know how long-term we're talking about?
No, we'll assess that the moment we can get on the ground. But we do have a lot of Ergon Energy crews who are there. There is a large base in Cairns, which is permanent, but there's also a lot of other workers who will be mobilised into that area, and there is a good presence across a number of those smaller zones as well. Our immediate priority right now is to say to people, we want you to be safe first and foremost, and then we'll worry about that infrastructure and work with you to reconnect it as quickly as we can. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's a big system, and that means that there will be power outages. We're starting to see that now, and progressively as we're updating that, you're seeing more power loss in the region. So it's important that people know that. Equally, it's important to know that they're not going to be left on their own devices. We will be mobilising, and there are people on the ground ready to go.
Is there any update on telecommunications?
No, not yet. We have the telcos joining us today. They have also, at our request, pre-positioned some generators and some fuel capacity to be able to try to meet that demand, but their infrastructure is also subject to the fury of the wind speed, so we'll see where that lies. Equally, we have pre-positioned some of those mobile units that we purchased about a year ago, those ARNI units, and they can be moved into town just to give that critical communications need. So they're ready, they are in place, including one at Cooktown, one at Wudjil, so they can be moved around as needed as well.
Have there been any reports of these moving around? Is everyone hunkering down?
No, pretty good actually, pretty good. We had police who were still this morning actively in areas like Cowan, and the overwhelming reports are that people were doing the right thing. And look, cyclones and storm surges and flooding is something at this time of year that people in the far north of the state, their experience with it. The difference with this system is it's a big one. It's not every day that a system of this size, a Category 4 or a 5, comes across. I can remember, in the last 10 years, a 4 or above, handful of times. So they're a big system, but the people have got their wits about them. They know what to do.
What's the evacuation centre like at the moment? How many people on there? Is it set up of gear and food and so on?
So in the case of Cooktown, we'll be getting a briefing soon because there were some people who relocated early. But in Cowan, the council worked with a handful of people in the order of a couple of dozen who believed that their home wasn't going to be safe. So the council assisted in accommodating them. And that was really good work, and that's what we said yesterday. We said, first and foremost, you need to have a plan and stick to it. And for most people, that means going into a safe room in their own home. Others will choose to go and be with friends or family, which is always another good option if they believe that their home, for example, predates 1982, which is when the new building systems came in. They might go with the friends and family who've got a more robust home. But then there were others, and those others chose to go and seek refuge in one of the council refuge centres, and the council, which is the Cook Shire Council in that case, accommodated those residents in Cohen. And as you know, we evacuated others from Lizard as well as from Port Stewart as well. Guys, thanks very much. We'll see you in a couple of hours. Thank you.